8:32 right now, and Mothers Against Drunk Driving has been around for nearly 50 years. The nonprofit dedicated to fighting impaired driving has a new look, but its message remains the same.
Every 78 seconds, someone is killed or injured by an impaired driving crash.
MADD is leading the charge for anti-drunk driving technology, prevention, support for victims and survivors, and stricter laws. We'll do anything to protect the ones we love and one another so we all get home safely.
Now, MADD's mission to prevent impaired driving hits very close to home for our next guest, Bob Nulman, who has volunteered with the organization for 19 years. So, good morning, Bob. Thanks for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Dan.
Morning.
Now, you joined this organization or volunteered with this organization for very deep personal reasons. Your 22-year-old son, Dan, was killed in a head-on collision by an impaired driver. What can you tell us about?
You know, it was in 1987. My son Dan was a 22-year-old senior at Trenton State College, which is now the College of New Jersey. And on a Saturday evening, he and 4 friends went into Philadelphia for whatever. And sadly, when they were returning home, Dan was a passenger in the car. When they were returning home on I-95 going northbound, a young 20-year-old woman who was very impaired, drunk and drugged, got on I-95 going the wrong way, hit the car Dan was in head on, killed all 5 boys, and killed herself. Such a tragedy. They put me in a police car, drove me down to Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and there I was identifying my beautiful son's body. You know, something, you guys are parents, so you know exactly what it must feel like, but nobody should ever be put through that kind of trauma. It was just so terrible.
Well, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. And you turned your grief, though, into advocacy. Now, it took some time, right? But you began volunteering for MADD's helpline. So I'm curious what kind of calls you field on that helpline and why you decided to turn your grief into advocacy work.
You know, so actually I've been with MADD for almost 37 years.
Wow.
It's 19 years that I've been on the MADD National Helpline, answering calls in the middle of the night. But as to the question of why I determined that I was going to do something is, I guess I had a choice. I have friends who have gone through the same kind of trauma and have become very angry and negative. I had all this energy. I was the mayor of my town, so I had a bully pulpit. And I said, gee, people are going to listen to me more than some others. So I decided to take that energy and turn it into something positive. And I kind of made a pledge that for the worst thing that's ever happened in my life is to just get a little good out of it by dedicating myself to the fact that I hope other families don't have to face that kind of challenge. And so I just took off and I haven't stopped.
Well, as you mentioned, you were mayor of Clinton, New Jersey, right?
Yes.
And you were lobbying at the time for stricter rules against impaired drivers. What did you accomplish through that?
You know, so, you know, back in the day, drunk driving wasn't taken very seriously, sadly. I can remember, you know, people used to brag about how I got home last night, the state I was in, or see their car crooked in the driveway. So the laws weren't that strict, and the culture wasn't that interested in the fact that drunk driving was kind of a runaway thing. And so we started lobbying. The first thing was to lobby for 0.08 blood alcohol level, and that was a big thing. It happened, so back then, Senator Frank Lautenberg from New Jersey was our champion, and he was the one that got the federal law changed to make sure that all of the United States, every state, took on the 0.08 blood alcohol level, and that was just a very good thing. and other things. We lobbied for ignition interlocks. So ignition interlocks are a big deal because it means, in New Jersey especially, and in many other states now, that if you are convicted of drunk driving, all offenders must pay to have an ignition interlock put into their automobile and have to blow into that machine to start their car. That has been a big game changer. But we've got new technology that's coming along that's even going to be much more effective, and we're excited about
What's that
too.
Is that because, you know, impaired driving means so much more now beyond just alcohol?
Exactly. So, you know, so it's Mothers Against Drunk Driving, but our new stance on how we communicate is, we call it impaired driving, because we want to be more inclusive, to include not only the drug of alcohol, but the other drugs that are so rampant and that are equally, you know, equally offending, because, and it's even more difficult with other drugs besides alcohol, because it's not as easy to measure. But so one of the things that, there's a new law that was passed by Congress in 2021, which is in the works now. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is now getting to the details of the regulations, that by 2026 or maybe a bit beyond, we hope it's going to be sooner rather than later, there is going to be biometric measures in every car, just like in the late 1960s they said you had to have seat belts, just like in the 1990s they said you have to have airbags. This is going to be passive technology under what is called the HALT Act. And what it means is there are going to be sensors in every car that's made from the point that it's instituted, hopefully in 2026. But every car is going to have that as part of the manufacture, just like seat belts, just like, gee, I'm old enough to remember when you didn't have turn signals or you didn't have seat belts and all of those things. So
well, Bob,
that's a very big change.
Yeah, and the work that you're doing is so great. You're saving lives, and we're so appreciative of you being here this morning.
So I just want to mention that we have new branding at MADD. You know, we got a little stale, I guess, because we've been around for 44 years, and our message, you know, it was a little retro. So what we've done, and we just announced it within the last 2 weeks, is that we have whole new branding for MADD. Instead of the martini glass and the car key, which, how many of you have a car key anymore? And we weren't reaching the demographic we wanted to, so we decided to do research, to get studies, and to find out that we needed a new logo. We've got a new logo where the MADD A is a triangle, and it's a beautiful symbol of alert nationally. So there it is.
All right.
And our message is impaired driving stops here.
Gotcha.
So this is the new MADD, and this is a whole new take on things, so that we can reach a demographic of the 15-year-old to the 30-year-old, and we are so motivated, and we are going places. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you what MADD is doing.
Of course.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.